What's up, everybody? Welcome to the State of Wild, episode 83, a regular YouTube video web series podcast thingy. My name's Mecha'Thun, as usual. I'm joined by my two good friends and co-hosts, Roffle and Corbett. How are you guys doing this week?
I'm doing all right. I actually got the Elden Ring at the end of the week, so I found yet another game that can make me furious, just like Hearthstone. It's like, and I guess a masochist. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel so out of loop. I think 90% of my Twitter feed has been about Elden Ring, and I have no idea what's going on. But it seems like people are enjoying it and having as much fun as they can, despite their terrible sickness that they all seem to be coming down with and not being able to go to work. So, but I'm doing all right. I'm doing good. I'm happy to talk with you guys. It's a little bit of a lull here in the Hearthstone scene, but there's kind of a lot coming up, and hopefully we have a good episode today.
Yeah, I saw that tweet from Ixar about how everybody magically called in sick from work on the Hearthstone team on Friday when Elden Ring dropped. I mean, not my kind of game. It's Dark Souls-esque, and I can only stand being bad at like one game, which is Hearthstone. I don't really think I can mentally withstand realizing that I'm not very good at another. My very fragile ego to begin with. So, but yeah, as Corb alluded to, a little bit of a lull. I know we're like a week and a half into a new mini set, but it kind of feels like things settled super quickly. And so we're kind of in a lull, waiting for some big major developments, maybe some reversion announcements or some announcements for the new set. We are about like a month away. Very optimistic about that, but excited for some new content. In the meantime, we're going to be talking about a couple of different things here today. But before we get into all that, just a reminder to leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you guys enjoy the content. It is a small thing, but it does actually support us a ton.
You can also support the podcast by becoming a patron over at patreon.com/thestateofwild and pick up some pretty cool perks.
And of course, you can always come join the State of Wild Discord server to come talk with the community about all things Wild Hearthstone.
All right, so before we dive into things, before I forget with my goldfish memory, we did want to talk a little bit about the fact that we're going to be doing a mailbox episode next week. So just in case there's no major news that comes out between now and next week's episode, we'll do a mailbox episode where you guys leave us all of your questions down here in the YouTube comments, or you can @me on Twitter, or at one of the three of us on Twitter, and we'll pick the best ones, and we'll hopefully have some fun conversations next week. So make sure you guys drop those down below. All right. So to start things off, actually today, like literally this morning, somebody had reported a brand new bug Druid deck in the WoW format. So the way that this bug or feature works is with the card Pride Seeker. So this is one of the new 3-mana 2/4s from the new set that says your next choose one card costs 2 less. However, it is currently bugged with the choose one minions that transform into something else. For example, Druid of the Reef, which transforms into a 1/3 or a 3/1. Those transform effects don't get recognized by Pride Seeker, and so you permanently get a 2-mana discount on all of your transform minions. And so there have been a lot of people messing around with this deck on ladder. Corb, I know you were probably the first out of the three of us that played it. You want to report back on your findings?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bug in Druid. I have to exploit it as hard as I can, as fast as I can. This is what I do. It was okay. Like, the high rolls when it was good were really good. I kind of put it in a Beast Druid package. I wasn't really sure what to do with this, like, bug. You hear about it and it's like, oh, that's a lot of mana cheating, but where the hell does it go? So I kind of put it in the Beast Druid shell, because a lot of the choose one minions are beasts. Druid of the Reef. I think they're all beasts, actually. And they kind of suit that archetype. And yeah, when it pops off, it was great. But overall, you are running cards such as Druid of the Flame in your Wild Hearthstone deck in 2022. And while that can be pretty good when you get it out for 1 mana, it's not as good when you get it out for 3. So, I don't know. I had a really good time kind of screwing around with this. I don't think it's very good, but, these kind of fun little novelties that pop up. I know people feel very strongly about them, like some people do, but I always think of them as just a funny little blip that doesn't affect that much, and hopefully it can be a fun memory that we have of something that went a little bit wrong in the past. So, give it a shot, but I wouldn't be worried about this being the Jerry Rig bug in terms of taking over all of ladder anytime soon.
Yeah, Druid choose one effect bugs are becoming the new like broken Warlock thing of the wild format. Yeah, I can't see this being like terribly oppressive or anywhere near comparable to what the Jerry Rig buff bug uh, was. So seems just kind of goofy and fun. I'm sure it'll get patched out soon. And in the meantime, I don't know. This is maybe your one chance to play this card.
Yeah, it reminds me very much of like the Cthulhu combo in Hunter, or like the Mecha'Thun bug in Rogue, where like it's not a very good deck, but if I know anything about the WoW community, is that I know that they're gonna play the crap out of this bug because it's gonna be like the one time that they get to play all of these choose one beasts in the WoW format, and they're gonna take full advantage of it, even if the deck is not super top tier.
I'm not actually sure it'll go that far, to be honest. Like, I think the Maxina Cthulhu effect was so outrageous and silly and absurd that it kind of made it, so fun for many people, including some of the devs. Whereas with this, it is a little bit more normal. You are doing this sort of silly mana cheating thing, but it doesn't feel as absurd. And the deck that it kind of goes in, it seems like this Druid deck. I mean, people haven't been that excited to play that either, just in general, which we'll get to later in the show. So I'm not entirely sure whether this one will take over as much, just because it isn't quite as flashy.
We need people to play it though, because then how else will it get nerfed? Come on, we got to get eyes on the issue here. I say
I tried.
issue.
I tried. I was ready to popularize this thing. I won my first 3 games. I was like, great, we're gonna take this thing to rank 1, and I think I lost like 5 in a row, and things went a little south.
Well, we'll drop a deck code for you guys that want to play this new feature on ladder before it gets patched out. I think the assumption here, though, is hopefully you're getting it. It's probably not that great of a deck, but if you have the cards, and like Roffle mentioned, it's probably the one time you're going to be able to play cards like Druid of the Flame, or what is the 2-mana 3/2? I don't know the names of any of these cards. That's part of the problem, right? Or like those are the only time you get to play Lodi in Wild. Outside of like
Saber.
Yeah, outside of like Untapped Potential Druid, right? Like that'll be the one time that you get to do any of that. So take advantage of it, have fun. I mean, I'm personally not the biggest fan of it, but if the deck's not very good, I don't think I'm going to be seeing it anywhere. So don't think I can be too mad about that. All right, so let's hop into some actual talking about the WoW metagame of good decks. And so we wanted to take today's episode and talk a little bit about decks that are pretty damn good that you guys just aren't playing enough and probably should be playing more, and why you should be playing them. So the first deck that I actually want to talk about, I'm going to surprise these two here. I want to talk a little bit about Mecha'Thun Warlock versus AAEBAaoIAA Warlock, because I know that there's a pretty large percentage of people playing both decks still in the format. And I know, Corby, you did a little bit of talking about this in your Discord and everything, so I wanted you to maybe just talk a little bit about Mecha'Thun Warlock versus AAEBAaoIAA Warlock and which one they should really be playing in the format moving forward. Kind of decide on like the one deck.
Sure, because I mean, I was so hyped about the idea of AAEBAaoIAA Warlock. It's something that we floated kind of on the podcast weeks ago, where the idea was, it's going to be in the same shell as Mecha'Thun. But if it's faster, then it just has to be better, right? And it turns out it is faster, but not necessarily better, sadly. So it kind of seems like as our Warlock is sort of propagated among the wider player base, the deck is much, much, much worse, at least performing as much than Mecha'Thun Warlock. The big problems that happen is that even though it is like half a turn quicker, it loses a lot out to aggro, it seems like. Things like the Pipe Warrior matchup are quite a bit worse than for Mecha'Thun, and it kind of makes sense where you don't have the flexibility with Phylactery. In Mecha'Thun, you can use that, very proactively for Mistress of Healing. Mistress of Mixtures Healing, or you can use it for your combo, whereas in our Warlock, you kind of like need it for the combo a lot more, so you do lose that ability to like heal up a ton. You also have to like spend the mana and play an owl, which can be quite difficult. Rather than just being a lot more defensive while churning through the deck. So it loses a little bit out on the aggro matchups. It also is hit much harder by Geist. Now, Why is that a big deal? Because 5% of people still play Geist. And like if you are just getting soloed by one card, it doesn't matter if it's like that small of a percentage. 5% is still a lot, and it's kind of just another small blip that makes it a little bit, a little bit worse. So yeah, Owl War definitely does look much worse. I mean, I performed really well with it, and so I assumed it was probably really good, but it's probably just likely that I got lucky or something in a relatively small sample of games. And yeah, gravitate back towards the Mecha'Thun, guys. That's probably the one you want to be playing.
I think Mecha'Thun has been the more popular one pretty much throughout, just because it popped up earlier. I mean, it has a more wild exclusive combo feel to it, and for some reason people just really dislike Owl Warlock, even though, or LTK Warlock, even though Mecha'Thun essentially does the same thing. So I'm not terribly surprised that that Mecha'Thun has been more popular, but yeah, I think that really what you highlighted is probably the reason is that it just has less flexibility into aggro. You can't use the Mistress Phylactery combo to stabilize, which, I mean, even if you don't have a full board, still does a lot into aggro if you're getting like 3 to 4 minions, because you get the Mistress back into hand that you can dump her, then Plague of Flame. So it's like, it happened to me the other day. It was pretty gross, and I wasn't even playing that aggressive of a deck, so it was just like, yeah, this has got to be good into hyper aggro.
Yeah, I also, dude, who's still playing Geist in 2022? What are we playing Geist for? That like, there's no more Odd Hunter.
Well, there's Questline Hunter. I don't know.
That gets hurt so much less with Geist, because like you just like draw them into all their 2-cost spells, and they just like kill you with them.
There's Line Cracker Druid that has a tiny percentage of the population.
People are gonna run that card no matter what, just on the off chance that it hits something.
Yeah.
White Delight, we're looking at you. I don't know, just another example of us here on the State of WoW podcast being wrong about a deck or a card, right? I think we were all in agreement, right, that we thought Owl Warlock was going to be good. We thought it was going to, because it was faster. Yeah, we'll admit it.
We did have the conditional that that's if Ice Block remains out of the metagame. A part of why Owl Warlock might have another part rather is that like we've been seeing some ping mages popping up recently that are running the Ice Block, and that just not going to work. And I've also personally I don't know if it's the data reflects this, but I've been seeing a lot more secret mages popping up as well. And so like, Ice Block is there, but maybe not necessarily enough to make it noticeable different, but like, the every percentage point matters, and with that plus the Mistress combo is maybe the cause.
Yeah, it was a really kind of neat example, I think, where you can think about a deck logically, and it's like logically if the deck's fast, then it has to be better. And then I like for me personally, like I went out and I won a ton of games with it. It was my better performing decks this month. But overall, even if it's just like my better performing decks, it's only on like 50, 60 games. It doesn't say like maybe I would have done better with Mecha'Thun in that exact same time frame. Like I don't know, and so it does like paint how difficult it can be, even if you think about a deck and you play a deck yourself, just how difficult it is to sort of judge it as one person, and why this whole like aggregation and seeing how it performs for the wider population can be really useful and is really just important when evaluating decks.
Good points all around. All right, let's hop into maybe some of the newer decks, right? Because Mecha'Thun Warlock, not particularly the most novel thing in the format. God, it's been around for, what, 2 years now? 2.5 years? Since Doomsday,
I feel like it popped up, I think, in was it Wild Open month? Like the last Wild Open. We took it out of the Chinese meta, I think.
The last Wild Open was 2 years ago. 2.5 years ago? 3 years ago?
I think it was way more than that.
3 years ago now. I think
it's been around for 3.5 years then.
2019, I think.
Blizzard, support Wild. Give us another Wild Open, please. No, but okay, so that means it's been around. Like, Boomsday was 3.5 years ago then, right? God, time really flies. Yeah, because Scholomance was last summer, and then the summer before that was Saviors. So yeah, it was 3.5 years ago. Yeah, it's been around for a long time. So, anyways, the point of this being, let's talk about something that's novel. Let's talk about Dragon Druid. So we talked a little bit about this last week with a couple of different variations of the deck, and I do think there's been a little bit of gravitation, towards the build that Corbin Otters kind of popularized with the 3 dragons and the 2 Breath of Dreams, using Ysera alongside Kazakusan and Raid Boss Onyxia. I played a little bit of it myself. Dirty Rat still hurts, but how are things looking kind of big picture for you guys when it comes to Dragon Druid, just generally as an archetype, and then have you guys been playing a lot of the 3 dragon build itself?
Yeah, I also played a fair amount of the 3 dragon build. I took Otter's List for a spin. Felt really good. The Psych Melon kind of ensures that you hit the minions that you have by the time that you need them. It also ran a copy of Mutanus at the 7 slot to give you a little bit of flexibility against the aforementioned Mecha'Thun Warlock, which, it can be pretty devastating to chomp down on the big boy. But yeah, it seemed good. Like, I'm constantly surprised by how fast Kazakusan is. Like, especially in a deck like Druid where you have card draw and you have additional mana to work with by the time you get Guff down. But yeah, I think Dragon Druid is and probably should just kind of replace the Cthulhu package, because especially in the mirror, man, it was a free win, like, as the Dragon Druid, because it's taking them so much longer to get online. Like, by the time they're playing their second or third Cthulhu piece, you're already shuffling treasures into your deck that you can then point at their face, and they just never are able to, like, catch back up. So you're just able to push the pressure to a point where they can't recover.
Yeah, the druid, these kind of druid shells in general, it's kind of crept up just how synergistic and how much better they feel than where they were, like a year ago. Something like Jade Druid was like just an absolute joke for a significant amount of time, and really with the power of this, like, picking up things like Moonlit and the Guff obviously is huge, but which Guff then enables Twig Sphere, and Twig Sphere can do these high rolls. It kind of feels like Druid just kind of got better and better sneakily. And yeah, this kind of shell, like Kazakusan Druid, it is just another iteration, another evolution of what we kind of built on with Cthulhu, and it's really good. By far the best use of Kazakusan in Wild, as it is in Standard. The difference being, in Standard, the deck is a glass cannon. Like, it is one of the most polarizing decks that has kind of dominated the meta in a while, Like, I mean, we have seen Poison Rogue in Standard, but Kazakusan Druid in general does force a very polarizing experience. In Wild, not so much. Like, that deck can really stand up to aggro, and aggro is some of its better matchups with all the defensive Druid stuff, so really, really good if you are looking to play something, and it's fun. Like, Kazakusan cards are fun. That is cool. So, give it a go.
I'm going to float out this idea here for you guys. So I was playing a version of Dragon Druid, but instead of the Ysera, I was running Malygos. Like OG spell damage Malygos, in combination with stuff like Swipes. And then, like, it on its own is solid. I think just you don't really need the stuff from Ysera. And then you just have always the high roll potential of something like Ancient Reflections, where you go, play the Malygos, play Ancient Reflections. I now have 7 Malygos on the board. I'm going to swipe you for 30 billion damage. I think it's 39 to be exact, right? But then you can, like, combo with stuff like Solar Eclipse or even like the second swipe, and you can do some pretty gross stuff. And I just really liked it as that third dragon, because I think it's just like solid standstill.
Yeah, I actually had somebody running a similar build against me where, like, again, something that I don't think people have toyed around with too much is that, like, with Guff at getting you to 20 mana, you don't really need a full combo with Malygos. You can just do something gross like a Malygos swipe, and 15 mana or 13 mana isn't really that tough to get to with Guff, and but devastating for the opponent's board. It's basically like a DIY book, and then you can put that in conjunction with the actual book that you could get from Kazakusan, and, like, Malygos is looking pretty good, right? Like, yeah, it's fun to shuffle the dream cards, but Malygos has a lot of synergy with some of the the spells that you get from Kazakhstan anyway, and you can kind of plan your choices with that in mind.
Yeah, I've seen the Malygos stuff pop up. I've been keeping an eye on it. It doesn't look bad. So it is very early days, but it's a silly swing. Like it's kind of like fun that you can just randomly throw in a Malygos swipe combo, and you're like, you know what, it's pretty good. I'm good to go. And it does offer some, some lethality, some sort of like counter pressure and things like that. Huge recovery on the board as well. So, if there's nothing great in terms of the other dragons, obviously we really want the Kazakhstan and the Onyxia. Like those are definitely the standouts. Players, you can toy around whatever you want, and whether it is like Mali or the Ystera or something else, I'm sure it'll be fine. But yeah, I would in general though recommend trying to get into those 3 or 4 dragons and running the Breath of Dreams stuff. That does look a little bit better than the alternatives, I think.
God, Breath of Dreams is broken, by the way. Side tangent. Cards.
Oh, two
freaking
mana
insane.
wild growth. 2 mana wild growth is good. Oh, and you get a card.
And you get to draw a card. Yeah, that's absolutely insane.
Well,
yeah.
It actually is like unironically broken with Guff though. Like it doesn't give you the
Oh, yeah.
access to mana. So that's a bit of a bummer, and I hope they fix that soon. I know that there are some other issues with Guff that have been resolved, but hopefully that will get fixed. But yeah, like draw a card, gain a mana crystal is disgusting for 2 mana.
Yeah, honestly, more urgent of a bug fix required than the Pride Seeker legitimate bug druid,
Probably.
Yeah, probably. Also, second side tangent. Ancient Reflections makes for some sweet, sweet highlights. What a treasure.
Yeah, I know, Meowth. I remember playing a Dragon Bane against you, and you played it on my Dragon Bane, and my portrait blew up. So...
Yeah. I also had an opponent who played Kazakhstan, used it on my Malygos, and then killed me with a Book of Exalted Deeds. And I was like, can't even be bad. They did the thing that I wanted to do, just a little bit better than I did. But yeah, I think Dragon Druid, sweet deck. It's a control druid deck too, right? Like it's what everybody wants. People wanted control back, and it's a sweet control deck with a sweet win con. I think Dragon Druid is pretty cool, and I think a lot of people out there would honestly agree. I think a lot of people are playing it and having some fun. All right, so let's move on to another druid deck here that people probably should be playing a lot more of. And this is one that I'm personally going to advocate for, because I took Corb's Beast Druid list, and I played about 30 games with it. And I am currently 24-5 with Beast Druid at High Legend. You guys should play more Beast Druid. I know it might seem like a meme that we're running stuff like Knight of the Wild and Bees in a competitive Wild Hearthstone deck. But the deck is absolutely insane. Like, the deck is so strong. It's basically Dark Glare for Druid. I mean, it's a little bit worse than Peak Dark Glare, don't get me wrong. But the deck is absolutely insane. Can do some insane mana cheating. You guys should play more of it.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked a while about how, it's only a matter of time before, what is it, Crystalline Oracle or Oracle of Elune is a broken thing in Wild. This deck actually took a long time for people to uncover though, right? Because we had Frostwolf Matriarch for a long time, and it was very late in the expansion cycle, almost up to the point where the mini set was coming out. Where Corb can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there are any mini set cards that added to Beast Druid. It wasn't the mini set that bolstered the deck. It was just people tried playing the deck and realized, if you pay 0 mana for the Frostwolf Matriarch with the Oracle of Elune down, you get 2 of them. The same thing applies to the Knight of the Wild, and it plays a little bit differently than just your typical aggro dude too, because you're not just vomiting your hand into buffs. You're trying to set up those big swing turns. So I think it's a little bit more interesting than people are giving it credit for. There's cute synergy with the bees, or you can just use bees as a target for Mark of the Lotus. This is a deck that I tried really early on, but my build was close but not optimized at all, and I was skeptical of it, but people just keep doing well with it. I don't know.
Yeah, the deck's performing so well, especially at the the typical diamond bracket, because it's a really good counter to Pirate Warrior. And obviously, like with the pirate warrior population is higher, then it performs even better. But still, like even at like high legend and stuff, like Meowth is saying, it's still super well rounded. Um, it's actually a deck that I kind of want to make a little bit of a video on, because the process was sort of interesting, where I basically just stumbled across this deck on Hate Just Replay, and this like decided to play it, and then I hit rank 1 with it, and then it kind of got a little bit more traction because, you know, like if you hit rank 1 with the deck, then people are much more likely to net deck it and so on. But this deck was like Night of the Wild was seeing play in maybe like 0.2 to 0.3% of the decks on HS Replay, which is like nothing. Like you can't even see it. It doesn't actually pop up as a deck on HS Replay, and so it didn't exist. But yeah, basically, I think what really happened is that it took a little bit for the deck to catch on in Standard. Like this type of version of the deck, like Beast Druid went through a lot of testing throughout the Thief Rogue era, but once Thief Rogue kind of got nerfed and the deck kind of popped up in Standard, we kind of had another look at it in Wild and kind of gave it a better shot. But yeah, it's really, really strong. And to be honest, it's kind of like my dream aggro deck in Wild. Like it's very synergistic. It's not curvy. Like you don't just play on curve all the time. You get to do big dumb swings that feel great. But I just think it's fun. Like I just think it's a really, really cool aggro deck. It's one of my favorites.
All of that wording makes me just like think of Kingsbane Rogue, right? Really big swings.
Yeah, big swings, exactly.
No, but like I do remember playing a lot of the like Oracle of Elune style decks at the very beginning of the expansion, but this is like where I really wish that I had Corb's like 200 IQ, because I couldn't get any of my decks to work. Like I had an entire stream that I just dedicated to playing like Oracle of Elune decks in Wild, and it was like 7 or 8 different builds, and they were all just like, they felt like they were almost there, but they weren't quite good enough. And then like Corb comes along, makes a couple tweaks, and like all of a sudden it's a really, really good deck. And I mean, I'm happy.
I mean, I think like Absolute and Copper. I think Absolute in particular deserves credit on this one. I mostly just
for
like
refinement and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, like I picked it up and I looked at it and I was like, I don't think I want to change anything. That looks good. And I tried it and stuff, but I think he got that Kurg out of first. So I just played it, and yeah, it went really well because deck's good.
All right, you guys should play more of it. The deck is super sweet. All right, I made this Dark Glow reference, and I know you guys are missing your 0 mana 8/8s. So let's talk a little bit about Giants Shaman, and I'm just gonna hand it back over to Corb here. So I know Tulio hit rank 1 legend with this like Frog Shaman like about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, and it's kind of been a thing ever since. Do you want to give us the history, the lore of why we're now including giants in our Frog Shamans and how they're performing?
I mean, it's the same as the Night of the Wild story. It's because I went on just replay and I looked at Frost Giant and I was like, oh, that looks like it's doing pretty well. So I tried that. But I mean, the idea obviously is like 0 mana 8/8s are good, and sometimes if you can't actually just lethal the opponent over the top, or if they're playing something that's a bit more heal based, and you know, something like Druid, for example, right? Like you're never gonna purely burn out the Druid a lot of times. So 0 mana 8/8s though, those are good. So kind of just giving a little bit of, you know, flexibility, I guess, or like a different game plan. Mostly just trying to play powerful cards. But the deck kind of looks maybe a little bit worse than this Drekthar, because like 0 mana 8/8s are good. Drekthar is also really, really good. And you know, it makes that pure burn game plan a little bit better, I think. It probably makes the deck a little bit less well-rounded, because you are more likely to lose to things like Druid, but you're probably just like way more favored in your already favored matchups, you know, like you're much more likely to get the Frog because you're running basically a third copy, and you're also cheating into play often with Note Taker, which is really good with like Lightning Bloom. So yeah, basically it's something I toyed around with. It looks pretty good, like the Giants version. Maybe there's kind of some room for refinement, things like that. But Frog Shaman in general does look pretty solid.
Yeah, with a deck that hinges so hard on whether you draw the frogs, I could very well see a third copy of frogs being the way to go. But like, I don't know, it's new, it's interesting. Again, multiple people are hitting rank 1 legend with it, so there's something there.
Yeah, just all it's missing is slapping a Flurgle Tox in there for the classic Shaman builds. honestly, Flickletalks probably should be in there. I don't know.
Oh, I mean, Pace, like immediately put it in, and then I started doing that as well.
Yeah.
The
All right.
the
There you go.
Flogel thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Flickletalks.
I also cut the Arcane Giants because it does seem like the Snow Giant is like much easier to get down to 0 cost. Like you're much more likely to overload 11 than play 11 spells, which is kind of funny. And so yeah, you can just do that. And obviously the Snow Giant being an elemental is actually very, very cool because, you know, you get to draw it off the Primal Dungeoneer. And, you know, you get to get it down, like, very easily. So the deck overall is really, really sweet. Like, it's kind of a, I heard some people describe it as sort of it's like burn Dark Lair, where instead of burning yourself, you burn the opponent, which is kind of cool. And definitely can scratch that itch for people the type of people that like decks like Dark Lair, APM Mage, that kind of stuff. You'll probably have a lot of fun with this.
Just to make sure we're clarifying here, we're not talking about Frost Giant, the Hero Power Giant. We're talking about Snow Flurry Giant, the 11 mana 8/8 Overload card.
Did I say Frost? Yeah, Snow Giant.
You said it a couple times. But yeah, we're just to clarify, we're talking about the blue one that is 11 mana in Shaman. And we'll post an updated list. We're going to post a list for all these decks that we're talking about down in the description if you guys are interested in that. But yeah, I know I wanted to bring this up because I know a lot of people, like, this is that APM style deck that people always kind of flock to and love to play. And so with APM Mage being gone, I would say rest in peace Apprentice, but I'm not going to say that because I don't believe in it. But I do think that this will, like you said, I think scratch the itch for a lot of people that enjoy that style of deck. All right. And now we have one last deck to talk about here. And this is one that I'm going to let Roffle take the lead on because I think he is the one that pioneered this and made it popular because he hit Legend with it. Famous Wild Hearthstone influencer Roffle hitting Legend with Even Paladin. And it actually really looks like it's really, really good. So, Roffle, take it away.
Yeah, this is, again, I can't take credit for building Even Paladin. It's just like you put good Divine Shield minions in Paladin that get pulled from Call to Arms, and then you buff them up. There's some, like, cute synergy with the Dunbalder bridge into Call to Arms. I don't know. I was skeptical of the bridge going into it because I'm just like, yeah, that's nice, but like that's a full turn off when the deck really wants to be hitting its power turns on 3 and 4 with the Call to Arms. So you have to like give yourself a turn off and then play it. But it turns out like if you're pulling 3 minions from your deck into play with Call to Arms and then buffing them up by +2/+2, that's quite a big swing to the point where you can make up some of that tempo loss from the Dunbalder bridge. So kind of plays similar to the Beast Druid in that way, where you take turns to set up, but once you set up, your pop off is pretty gross. And I don't know, like to this day, I posted the deck or I hit Legend, over a week ago. People are coming in telling me how great of results they're getting with it. A lot of people are making really incredible Legend runs with it, but like if you look at the cards, it's just like it's just a pile of cards and a hero power that costs 1 mana that you think is kind of garbo. So it is a little bit confusing. I'm even surprised, like even in the moment when I was playing it, like I had like an 80%
all of these puns that are super unintentional, by the way. I just want to put that out there.
Yeah. Like I didn't understand how it was doing well in the moment when it was doing well. But like the deck just seems to find a way, and that's kind of like even Paladin's MO since its inception is it's just like you look at it and you say there's no way this deck can be good, and then it wins games and keeps winning games. It's really boring in what it does, but it's really good at what it does. It just like throws piles of stats, and then occasionally you get to spike damage with a Battlegrounds Battlemaster. So yeah, it's again, I can't take credit for inventing the deck, but like I don't know, I play a different deck every single day of the year. Eventually I'm gonna like get lucky and strike gold once when when I'm just putting stuff together, revisiting an archetype. So like it's good to see other people having success with it as well to kind of validate my experience, because I played a good number of games with it, or more games than I would typically play with a deck that I'm winning that much with, just because like I was making a legend run, so I kept winning. I just stuck with it. And I don't know. Deck's good, especially seemed reasonably strong into Pirate Warrior because Weblord just like locks them out almost entirely to the point where you can take those turns to set up. And surprisingly, it wasn't that bad into Questline Hunter if you're selective about the minions that you put in. I think I went 3 or 4-0 into Questline Hunter just because like I kept popping out Divine Shield minions and can't progress your quest on those, so they're going to keep hitting you in the face, and I'm going to keep buffing them up until you're dead. So that's kind of how it worked out.
Yeah, the Even Paladin looks like a huge sleeper. There's a list from you that's on there, obviously the one you used, and then there's a list from I believe Binks, who credited you as sort of inspiring them to give it a shot. And yeah, I don't actually understand how it's that good. Like everything you were saying, where it's just a pile of cards and call to arms. I mean, that does kind of summarize why it's good, but still, like the win rate is absolutely absurd right now. And you're totally right in terms of the hunter and the warrior. In terms of how those felt, those look like really good matchups for the even paladin right now. But to be honest, most things look like a good matchup for the even paladin. Probably outside of maybe Shaman, I think looks a little sketchy right now. But yeah, the deck looks really great. I tried it myself, and like it's one of those decks where I feel like I'm not doing that well with it. I feel like I'm like getting blown out in the games where I'm losing, or I feel like I'm just not really doing anything powerful. And I look up and I'm like 6, 7, 8 games positive. Because that's just even paladin, isn't it? I did make a couple of changes. I think like Shotbot is a really cool card with the bridge, just because you can like play it on 2 and then coin out the bridge and then trade, and then you get the immediate effect of that. Stuff like that is really, really nice. But yeah, even Paladin just looks really, really solid, which is so weird and so bizarre. But try hard Roffle, we've been teasing it. He's back.
Piles of cards that just win games. The definition of every odd and even deck ever, right? Just cards that don't look like they should do anything, and then you just like you said, have a 20. We forget how powerful piles of cards can be when you have upgraded hero powers. We forget that Witchwood era. But yeah, I don't know. What about stuff like Haunted Creeper with Bridge? Like, I know we were a little bit hesitant on Bridge coming into, like, not even just Even Paladin, but, like, the expansion as a whole. I don't know if we, like, just fully explore, like you said, 2 drops to leave behind bodies so that it makes that coining of the bridge a little bit less painful. Like, Haunted Creeper is not really that good of a card, but if you're summoning 2 3/3s out of a Haunted Creeper, like, it makes it a lot better of a card. So, like, I don't even know if we've, like, reached the final form of Even Paladin here when it comes to deck refinement.
Oh
no,
man,
I was
you go Ruffle.
Yeah, I was barely considering. Like I said, I was just like, yeah, we'll throw a bridge in. It's a new card. When I was building the deck, so I was barely even considering it as a thing. But like, if
it's
that's
a build around,
right, it very well could be worth a build around. Like that's going to make your Questline Hunter matchup quite a bit worse because you're probably cutting Divine Shields for it, but it also consequently maybe makes your Pirate Warrior matchup worse because the Divine Shields do some pretty good work in that matchup as well. But overall, yeah, the Dunbaldar Bridge might be a build around card.
And I will say, you have not lived until you've gone Samuru Rings of Courage against the Spreading Plague. Oh my god, that is so satisfying. It is unreal.
Wait, was I right about Rings of Courage? Is the card sweet?
It looks pretty good. Yeah, it looks really sweet. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it feels really sweet. It looks pretty good so far. So
I played it successfully like once where it was doing more than just giving +2/+2. So I don't know. But then I've been queuing into it a lot recently because other people are playing the deck. And somebody hit like a +7/+7 Ring of Courage against me. And I'm just like, why didn't I get that? That's my list you're playing, and I didn't get to do that. What's going on?
I do remember playing against a Tax Paladin, and I was playing Token Druid, and they played a Ring of Courage on turn 3. They gave them like a 14/14 Righteous Protector, and I was like, what do I do? Like, what am I supposed to do to this thing? I'm just gonna die to it, I guess, because I have no other way to answer it. Yeah, but it does seem like we're recommending people play this deck. We just talked about all these like super hype decks of Dragon Druid, Beast Druid, Giant Shaman, and then we're gonna tell people to come out here and play an even odd deck that while it runs new cards, while it looks really powerful, it is an even odd deck that historically people do not play. So I feel like we're preaching to the choir here that nobody's gonna listen to us anyways, and which makes me a little bit sad. I'm not gonna lie.
Hey, but someone will. You know, Roffle's got those YouTube comments rolling in. Like, I picked up even Paladin because of it, so, you know, like, doesn't have to mean everyone's going to play it, but I'm sure someone will pick it up, and, you know what? They'll probably hit Legend with it. Like, it's a damn good deck.
Alright. I want to transition this into a conversation that we wanted to have a little bit here towards the end of this week's episode. And talking about, so all of these decks that we've talked about today, outside of maybe Owl and Mecha'Thun Warlock, are all just like super underplayed decks in the format, or super unrefined decks as well. And so I kind of want to recap to this question. So every time we have a wild open or we have standard players talk about the wild format, one of the things that constantly seems to come up is that there's all these like tier 1 undiscovered gems in the format that we just aren't smart enough to find. Usually I like push back with this. I don't think there's any tier 1 decks. Like, I don't think there's any like super broken interactions that we're missing. But I think there's a lot of like tier 2, tier 3 decks that are not necessarily undiscovered, but under refined, right? Just there's not enough people in the WoW format that play this huge variety of decks. And so I want to just start off like, is that something that you guys agree with or want to build off of?
I think it's a lot less common than people like to think it is. Like, there may be 1 or 2 per expansion cycle, and there's probably a few that like people agree, yeah, it's probably a fine deck, but like, I don't want to play another, 3 months of Odd Rogue when I played, 2 or 3 years of Odd Rogue, right? So there's some, and I feel like even Paladin kind of falls into that to a lesser extent, the Beast Druid, where like these are kind of very samey archetypes to what we've had in the past. So, it makes sense that maybe people aren't gravitating towards them as much as maybe their power level suggests they should. I say that, and Pirate Warrior is still one of the most popular decks in the format. So maybe I'm wrong in that case, but I think another part of it is that like Wild is kind of inherently a bit more of a casual format. So you have players that maybe aren't looking for the best deck. They just play the deck that they want to play, or the deck that they have in some cases. Like, part of the draw of the Wild format is that you build a good deck, you get to keep using it, you don't suffer from like rotation and losing your deck. So people are probably more likely to just like cling to a particular deck in the Wild format, because like that's the nature of Eternal format. That's how I played modern Magic the Gathering. Like, I had my deck, I would occasionally add cards to it, and like it was a fairly budget way to interact with the game, and like I could see that very well being the case for Wild as well. So that maybe they don't have the opportunity to branch out into some of these solid decks that aren't necessarily tier 1, but like tier 2, tier 3. You're saying, well, why am I going to invest all of my dust into something that isn't top tier, that's going to help me climb every month to actually get the resources I need to start building other decks? So I think that there are a lot of interactions at play. It's not just the smaller player base. I think it's the player base that kind of tends towards a format like Wild is also part of it as well.
You just covered all of my points that I wanted to talk about here in that like 2-minute. Damn it, Roffle, please.
That's a wrap.
Yeah, there we go. Speed run. We did it. Okay, I'll try and hit on some other stuff then. I'm usually like pretty, I guess a little bit dismissive of the idea that there are like secret tier 1 decks and stuff. And I think that for the most part that's true. Like, I think generally each expansion does get figured out. It does get kind of quote unquote solved. However, the recent stuff going on with Beast Druid is sort of, making me question things a little bit, because like, I think Beast Druid is basically close to a tier 1 deck, especially if they like upper diamond bracket, and because it is, like I said, very good to Pirate Warrior, and he's a arguable tier 1 deck at Legend as well. And that deck kind of we only really know that because I saw someone else was playing it and I took a look at it and I randomly decided to queue it up one day and like it got enough traction. And so, like, if I hadn't done that, then I don't know if we'd know anything about Knight of the Wild or Beast Druid or anything like that, right? Like, it's only there because people looked, and I don't think that's a very super common experience, but it is a very good like concrete example of the fact that this type of thing does happen and can happen. And it's kind of why, as easy it is to kind of like shut yourself off to the idea of the meta is what it is, yada, yada, yada. These decks are all just the best stuff and it's not worth trying anything else. It's a good example that isn't really the case. I think typically with things like even Paladin and Beast Druid, it does seem like there is a reoccurring pattern that these decks are very like board-based aggro. That maybe that's the type of deck that is difficult to sort of get going. But I think overall, like the biggest thing that stops Wild from having as much refinement and balance is, well, A, the competitive aspect, which, that's a big thing. But B, just not enough content creators and not enough eyes like watching content creators, and just overall having much smaller influence and sort of eyeballs on the screen and things willing to change. Because like Roffle said, a lot of people engage the game in a very casual way where they just kind of like the deck and they play it and they don't really need to keep updated and watching streams and changing things and all that kind of stuff. So I think there's a lot of factors, but the Beast Druid thing has been very interesting and definitely has me keeping tabs on on the HS replay stuff constantly.
Yeah. All right. Well, I have all these questions written out, and you guys have like all addressed all of them, anyways. But so I guess I'll just kind of riff here. Like, it is interesting to me. I do think that if you just like combine both of y'all's conversations, it's kind of the answer to the question of like why are these decks underplayed, and I think it's a combination of like lack of resources and kind of also just lack of interest. It's kind of the big thing. It's like, well, I don't have this much dust. Right? And so why do I want to spend that dust on something that is just going to be worse than Pirate Warrior? Or it's just going to be like another version of Pirate Warrior, another board-based aggressive deck. Whereas like I could be building towards Combo Warlock or things like that. But I don't know. I guess the question that I want to pose to you is like, if there is, this is a very ambitious, hopeful caveat to my question, but if they did somehow introduce competitive incentive to play the format, right? Do you think that we would get refinement of stuff like Beast Druid and stuff that's like in this tier 2 or tier 3 archetype where you'll see all of these decks that are not quite top tier get refined? Or do you think it would just be refinement of stuff at the very top, right? Refining stuff like even Warlock or Shadow Priest or decks like that?
I think it would be a little bit of both, but mostly the latter. And I think that, like, we do have good players in the Wild format. We do have people that are more than capable of refining the decks already. So, like, I don't think that that's necessarily a gap that is there, because they're also very creative deck builders, even at the top Legend ranks that, continue to surprise me, and I imagine much of the player base. So it's like, yeah, I think that there would be more of it. Things like Beast Druid would maybe surface a little bit faster. So I think it's more the speed at which some of these decks are discovered would be, faster. And I think that unlike with the Wild Open, where, yeah, we did, every time that popped up, we would get maybe one or two new decks. I think what we would need for that to happen is more consistent, like competitive incentive rather than just like a single month of the season where some like standard pros are coming over and grinding. But even then, like a lot of the decks that did pop up tended to be from other regions and people that were playing Wild in other previously in even before the Wild Open in other regions rather than like strictly coming from people moving over from standard. So I don't think that there's a lack of creativity in the format or a lack of skill in the format. tread lightly and whatnot. But like, um, I don't think that that's the gap that we have. It's just like, again, maybe the incentive to do that within the player base that we already have just isn't really there because, after, I mean, Corb can probably attest to this, like after so many times of seeing a number one next to your name, the novelty does kind of start to wear off after a while, right?
Roffle, I'm far more washed than you think, I think, at this point. I'll claim that one. I was very excited if it ever happens. But I like Ron was saying, it's probably less a little bit about the one-off thing. It's about honestly, it's even less about necessarily there being competitive incentive as much as it is about players. Like the more people that play, the more info you get. And I guess that's tied a little bit to competitive incentive, right? Like in some ways they are the same thing. The idea is if there is more competitive incentive, there are more people coming over. But I mean, you can still push lots of refinement if there's lots of, diamond and platinum and bronze and gold players. Like everything kind of adds up and sort of paints the bigger picture, and you kind of get to dig into more stuff. Just the way it works, more people play stuff, you get a better idea. But yeah, I don't know, because there are lots of people that do try lots and lots of things. Like it is highly experimental. It's just a matter of trying to sometimes get that out to the wider audience, which again goes back to what I was kind of saying about how people engage with the game a little bit differently, and less eyeballs on far fewer screens is kind of a big thing.
Yeah, I mean, how do you fix that though, right? Like, how do you?
Oh, I don't think it needs to be fixed. Like, okay. I just think it's a nature of like, hey, Wild is a smaller format, and there's gonna be less refinement because of that, and it's not necessarily like a problem. It's just the reality, and that's totally fine. Like, you can't go out and perfectly solve every single deck if you're the. Imagine if there's like 2 people playing this format. Yeah, and they're not gonna find everything.
Okay.
And yeah.
Fix might have been the wrong word. How do we improve that? There you go. Okay, I'm sorry about the language that I use, but like, how do you go about getting more people to, first of all, be exposed to all of these decks, right? Like, we say this as a podcast that we're only going to hit the most engaged people that are going to come out and seek this content, right? Like, how do you get these decks there, and then how do you get people to maybe play them? And is that something that we should be striving to do, or should we just like play the sweet decks? If people play it, so be it, and kind of go from there?
Well, I mean, I think we have to direct people to watch twitch.tv/Corbettgames. This come check us. Like, that's how we get as many eyeballs on this. No, like, I'm not really sure there is a way, Like, people want to engage the game how they want to engage it. And that's kind of a great thing about Wild and even with Classic. And I don't think it's a matter of changing the behavior. It's just, I think that generally the Wild player base does a great job in, having a smaller player base that does in terms of figuring things out. And there has been a bit of a change over the past few years and kind of getting players to play much more competitive stuff. For some people, that sucks. Like, a lot of people don't like that. But I think it's a real change that has happened over the past few seasons. And I think overall, you've seen in the VS numbers where players play the best stuff probably a little like more than they used to. It feels like players are far quicker to drop tier 3 decks than they did previously. So yeah, I don't know. I think people do like to experiment. People do like to play their fancy homebrews and stuff like that. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. And people do a really good job of sort of popularizing ideas. It's just smaller format. It's harder, but it can be done.
Okay. The Corb hit it on the head. Like, it's always going to be a part of having a smaller player base. Until we get a larger player base, we can't really expect that to change. But I don't think it's inherently a bad thing, and I don't think that they're like, I don't know. Maybe we miss out on seeing 1 or 2 decks in expansion cycles. That seems unlikely. Maybe a full calendar year. Maybe we miss out on 1 to 2 decks as a community. But like, so what? Like the thing about Wild is they're always going to be there, even if they aren't discovered right as soon as they come out. So I think that there's it's just people play the decks that they want. People play the decks that they have, and that's our format. And I think it's a good thing.
And I will say this quickly. The fact that I know that those kind of decks can be out there, it's a big part of why I keep coming back to Wild. Like, that's like the biggest fun thing for me, is trying to find the competitive deck that no one else knows about. And, it's kind of a sucker for what I want to play Wild for. So I love, like, I don't know, like you said fix and you kind of walked it back the word, but I kind of like that it's like this. It kind of makes for a much more fun experience for me.
All right, fair enough. Making me eat my own words there. I will accept that. Like I said, I also enjoy that aspect of the WoW format, so I definitely shouldn't have used the word fix. I don't know why I did, but I want more people to play the format, and I want more people to play the sweet decks that are out there, because so many people on Twitter I'll sit there and I'll like watch people complain about Pirate Warrior or Free Shaman, all of these decks. I'm just like, okay, but like there's also all of this other really, really sweet stuff that's also super competitive that you could be playing that nobody's talking about, right? And I guess maybe I see that as like
Right.
something that I want to fix, right? Even if that's not the word I should be using. And I think that's where I'm coming from that a little bit. But like, then you get into the whole financial aspect of the WoW format and everything like that. So it's a really, really complicated situation that we're in here. And I don't know, I'm going to keep playing the sweet decks, that everybody else may be not able to afford to, and kind of go from there. Like, we get that little advantage of being content creators, right?
Yeah, I mean, it would be great, right? Where, the biggest thing that affects play experience and fun in the game is kind of like what you play against, and sometimes you play against the same stuff way too often, and sometimes like there's no real justification for playing against the same stuff that much. Like there's so much kind of diversity that could be happening in Wild, and there is so much stuff that it is a shame if someone's experiences are sort of diminished because they keep on seeing the same monotonous garbage. And I think that's kind of, what you're alluding to, right? Is that it would be great if the playbase at large was sort of a little bit more willing to change and adapt and all that kind of thing. But how do you fix that? How do you change that? It's not something that you can really force on people, right? Like that information is out there if they engage with it. But it's just tough, like people will play the game as casually as they kind of wish, and maybe they become more try hard, but it kind of just is what it is.
All right, so super sweet little discussion here, kind of impromptu. Like I had these 3 questions, and then Roffle and Corbin, your like 2-minute spiels each, answered everything that. So we kind of just ripped on it, and I think it ended up in a pretty good place. So yeah, I mean, honestly, if you guys have thoughts about this little conversation here, and want to contribute to the conversation, let us know down in the comments. I think this is super sweet, and if you have ideas, because like this is like one of the main reasons I do content creation is like bring all these sweet decks that we play and like show them to people and let them play it. So if you guys have ideas on how to best do that, let us know down in the comments below. But that being said, that's gonna wrap it up for the State of Wild episode 83. Dude, we've been doing this for a long time. Roffle, Corb, thank you again for joining me. Let the people know where they can find you guys playing the newest, sweetest decks.
You can find me on Twitch and YouTube at Roffle, and Twitter and Instagram at RoffleHS.
And you can find me at Corbettgames on all those platforms, Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. So thank you guys very much for watching / listening.
You guys can find me at GetMeOut on all those platforms as well. Appreciate all of you guys that listened all the way to the end. You guys are the best. And thank you, everybody, for listening to the episode, and we will see you guys again next week. Let us know mailbag questions before I head off, and forget again, mailbag questions down in the comments, all right? That being said, have a good week. We'll see you guys next time. Later.